Welcome back to Stand With Us. I'm Roz Rothstein, and we're here with Barak Lurie, talking about what really, at the core of it, is the problem in the Middle East. Why can't we get rid of this? Why can't it get better? And, you're talking about dictatorships versus democracies, and your feeling is that mainly that is the core of it. And if only, like Turkey many years ago, I almost was going to plan a trip to go visit. Heard so much about Istanbul. I mean, I really wanted to see it. And that's all history. I'm not going. I know you went in 2007.
Right.
Right. And I know you're not going back. And that is because?
It's descended into dictatorship.
Right.
That's really the main reason.
Which is very scary. But it also appears to the world to be much more descended into radical Islamic fundamentalism. So now, how would you take that and layer it on top of your theory? And let's talk about where that plays a role.
Sure. Well, Turkey is actually a very good example because the population in Turkey was always Muslim. And yet it had a very modifying effect via its democracy. So it was a thriving country, did very well economically, and somehow was a member of the world. And so that was wonderful. But these dictatorships that are around, whether it's Syria, Saudi Arabia, and so on, they use radical Islam as a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool which they can use to propagate their dictatorship all the more. So we see that in Egypt, we see that throughout the Arab regions, where not only do they amplify the need for Sharia law throughout the world, and they promise that in exchange for propping up the dictator. The dictator will allow them the opportunity to advance Sharia law. And not only that, but they'll also encourage hatred among their children. We talked about that during the break, about how the education system is now being poisoned with anti-Semitism, anti-Israelism, anti-Americanism. This is what we're talking about. And it just simply accelerates the problem.
What the world looks at is this radical Islamic ideology. I mean, turn on, go to YouTube and take a look at it. It's pretty scary stuff with high numbers of people, looking like they're almost, joining in a Heil Hitler. It's pretty frightening, that dynamic. You're saying that is not the dynamic, even though we see it in every place that is a threat to Israel. Even though we see it like that, what you're saying is that no, it's actually the tool by which the dictatorship is unifying itself and distracting from the people's, problems.
Right. In a sense, the media is putting the cart before the horse. The reality is the dictator, if he's a smart dictator, if you want to maintain power, you'll say, what do I have available to me? What's on my chessboard? Oh, here's this nice piece. It's radical Islam, and I will provide that to my people. And they will love me for it. And so as a consequence, they get propped up. All the Arab leaders advance radical Islam one way or the other, or they'll at least encourage it.
It's really crazy if you think about it. I was just thinking about this the other day. A suicide bomber, in this radical Islamic sort of, here's a methodology, here's a method to the madness. Go be a suicide bomber, get 72 virgins, all that stuff. The suicide bomber goes into a restaurant and kills innocent civilians, which is exactly the opposite of what Islam is supposed to teach. Sure. Doesn't that make you interested? I mean, how do they even justify anything close to that, where a baby is blown to smithereens? I mean, how do you justify that?
This is what shocks the conscience for everyone. It shocks my conscience. It's hard to imagine anybody could believe that this is a proper way to go. Even more shocking to some extent is after a child does something like this, or a teenager, that their mothers are so proud of them for having done it.
Right.
And it's a sick world.
Right. No, we hear that, and it sort of props up the whole continuity of using Islam in this way.
Right.
And I know that there are people in this country who are Muslim who are appalled by this and very upset. Unfortunately, they have such a miniature voice, and they're so afraid that it's hardly anybody speaks up. Look up Zuhdi Jasser. Zuhdi Jasser is speaking up all the time, and I know his life has been threatened because he's a religious Muslim, but he feels that all of this is not who he is. and does
Right.
not represent him, and he wishes there would be more people that would speak out against it.
Right, like Noni Darwish and others like her who experienced firsthand what they saw, and they utterly rejected it. They
Right.
converted, in fact, but
Well, Nani converted, Wafa Sultan converted, but the difference is, and they have a big voice and they have a big history. You know, Wafa from Syria had her own experience of, you know, being taught hate. Now she's an atheist. Nani Darwish, having grown up in Egypt, experiencing all this hate training and then coming out of it and for fresh air, and she realized, wait a second, that's not for me.
Right.
But Zuhdi Jasser, I think, you know, he's very different. I mean, he's holding on to, he's cleaving to his, you know, his Islam, and he feels that he's being misrepresented and twisted. And I really believe, wow, if he could grow a movement, that would be quite extraordinary.
and he has quite a challenge on his hands. There are many such voices, many great Muslim voices. Some of them were my clients, by the way. And we talk all the time, and I tell them exactly what you just say. Please be a great voice out there.
It's scary,
And
though.
but
It's
to them,
scary.
it's scary.
Please kill yourself.
You're right.
Please go, you know, put yourself and your family at risk.
What a
I mean,
risk it is.
certainly, you know, we can all understand that this is not an easy time.
Right.
This is just going to get worse. I think it's
Right.
just getting worse.
To be an actively vocal Muslim, whether in America or otherwise, is a really dangerous thing in terms of promoting Western values, to promote love of life, and to eschew all the suicide bombing and such. That is a real challenge. You're putting a big target on your back. And God help you if you even think about converting or reject Islam. That's more dangerous for them. You and I, as Jews or people who are not Muslim, they'll let us speak as we are, as long as we don't get too big or too.
Well, we don't get
acknowledged.
into the religious, you know, aspects
Right.
of the Quran. I mean, we're not,
not.
you know, experts in that,
Right.
and have no right to speak on that. But what we do have permission to speak about is
Right.
what we see,
Right.
and what we doubt, and what we question. And that is, a lot of this behavior seems like the antithesis to a
Right.
book that, you know, is supposed to teach love. And I know that I've heard that it's impossible for you to reconcile killing the innocent. So, you know, that's a tough cookie. We're going to be right back. We're going to take a break now, but we'll be back for more with Barak Lurie.
Bashana.